The security guard didn't even let him touch the door. "Sir, you need to leave." The words came out fast, sharp, like they had been waiting for him before he even stepped out of the car. The man paused for a second, his hand still inches away from the glass entrance of the luxury dealership, the reflection of polished marble floors and million-dollar cars staring back at him like a world he wasn't supposed to enter. "I'm here to buy a car," he said calmly. The guard let out a small laugh, not loud, but loud enough. "Not today, you're not." For a moment, the air between them went still. The man didn't react the way most people would expect. No anger, no raised voice, no argument, just a quiet pause, like he was deciding whether this moment was worth his energy. Inside the showroom, a few salesmen had already noticed. They weren't coming over. They were watching, judging, whispering. "I said, I'm here to buy a car," the man repeated, his tone steady. The guard stepped forward, blocking the entrance completely now. "And I said you need to leave before I call the police." That word again, police. Always ready, always waiting. The man finally lowered his hand, letting it fall to his side. He looked through the glass one more time, his eyes moving across the showroom, taking in the rows of high-end cars, the polished floors, the people inside who looked like they belonged. Then he nodded slowly. "All right," he said, and just like that, he turned around and walked away. Inside, one of the salesmen shook his head. "Guy probably got lost," he muttered. Another one smirked. "We're trying his luck." They laughed lightly, the moment already forgotten. But outside, as the man reached his car, there was no anger in his face. Just Focacy pulled out his phone and made a call. "Again," he said, his voice calm, controlled. "I'm here." A pause. Then, "No, everything's clear." Another pause. "Good. Let's move forward." He hung up, got into his car, and drove away, without looking back. Inside the dealership, business went on like nothing had happened. Customers walked around, deals were discussed, numbers were negotiated, and the manager walked across the floor, confident, smiling, shaking hands, until the doors opened again. But this time, everything was different. A convoy of black SUVs pulled into the lot, one after another, clean, polished, expansive, the kind of arrival that didn't go unnoticed. Every head turned. Even the guard outside straightened up, suddenly alert. The first SUV door opened, and the same man stepped out. But now, he wasn't alone. Men in suits stepped out behind him. Professionals, serious, focused, the kind of people you don't question, the kind you don't stop at the door. The guard froze. His eyes widened slightly, confusion replacing confidence. The man walked toward the entrance again. Same calm steps, same steady expression. This time, nobody blocked him. The door opened, and he walked in. Silence spread across the showroom like a ripple. The salesmen who had laughed earlier were now standing straighter, their smiles forced, unsure. The manager approached quickly, adjusting his tie, his tone suddenly warm. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. How can we assist you today?" The man looked at him for a moment, recognizing the shift instantly. "I was here earlier," he said. The manager blinked, trying to process. "Oh, I must have missed you." "You didn't," the man replied. The room got quieter. The manager forced a polite smile. "Well, I apologize if there was any misunderstanding. We'd be happy to show you anything you're interested in." The man nodded slowly. "I'm interested in everything," he said. The manager's smile widened slightly, thinking this was about to be a big sale. "Of course, sir, we have a wide selection." "I don't think you understand," the man interrupted gently. The tone wasn't aggressive, but it was final. "I'm not here to buy a car." The manager's smile faltered just a little. "I'm here to buy this dealership." The words landed heavy. For a second, nobody reacted. Then a small laugh came from one of the salesmen, quickly dying when he realized nobody else was laughing. The manager cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm not sure this is something we can just discuss on the showroom floor." "It's already been discussed," the man said calmly. He gestured slightly toward the men behind him. "Legal team is here. Financials are done. Papers are ready." One of the suited men stepped forward, handing over a folder. The manager hesitated before taking it. His hands felt different now. He opened the folder slowly, scanning the documents, his expression shifting with every page. Confidence turned into confusion. Confusion turned into realization. This isn't," he started. "It is," the man said. The entire showroom was silent now. Every employee watching. Every assumption breaking. "You can call your corporate office if you want," the man continued. "They've already signed." The manager's face went pale. He looked up slowly. "You're serious?" I've been serious since I walked in the first time, the man replied. That sentence hit harder than anything else, because everyone in that room knew exactly what he meant. The guard outside shifted uncomfortably, watching through the glass, realizing too late what he had done. The manager swallowed hard. Sir, I had no idea that's the problem, the man said. Not angry, not loud, just honest. You didn't try to. The weight of those words settled over the room like a shadow. The man stepped forward, now fully in control of the space he had been denied just minutes ago. Effective immediately, he said, his voice steady. This dealership is under new ownership. No applause, no celebration, just silence. Because this wasn't just a business deal. This was a moment, a shift, a consequence. The man looked around the showroom one last time, his eyes passing over every face that had judged him, dismissed him, laughed at him. I came here ready to spend money, he said quietly. You sent me away. He paused, so I came back ready to make a point. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved, because there was nothing left to say. The man turned slightly, nodding to his team. Let's begin, he said. And just like that, everything changed. Not just ownership, but understanding. Because that day, in that showroom, something much bigger than a sale had happened. A lesson. One that nobody in that building would ever forget. The silence didn't break immediately after he said those words. It just stretched longer, heavier, pressing down on everyone in the showroom, until even the smallest movement felt loud. The manager was still holding the folder. But now it looked less like paperwork and more like something that had just rewritten his entire reality. The salesmen who had been laughing earlier were no longer standing comfortably, their postures stiff, their expressions uncertain, like they were trying to figure out how to exist in a moment that had flipped so quickly. The man walked slowly across the showroom floor, his eyes moving across the cars again, but this time the feeling was different. Before, he had been looking from the outside in, measuring a space that didn't want him. Now, he was walking through something that belonged to him, not just legally, but symbolically. You see this place? He said, his voice calm but carrying clearly across the room. Everything about it is designed to make people feel a certain way. Luxury, power, success. But the one thing you forgot to include was respect. Nobody interrupted him, because nobody could. The manager finally stepped forward, his voice careful now. Sir, I want to apologize for earlier. That shouldn't have happened. It doesn't reflect our values. The man stopped walking, then slowly turned. Your values? He repeated, not mocking, not raising his voice, just questioning. The manager swallowed. Yes, our company stands for. No, the man said, cutting him off gently but firmly. Your company stands for what it does, not what it says. That hit harder than shouting ever could. The manager lowered his gaze slightly, not out of submission, but because there was nothing to defend anymore. The man looked toward the front entrance, where the guard was still standing, unsure if he should come in or stay outside. Call him in, the man said. The manager hesitated for a second, then signaled toward the door. The guard walked in slowly, each step heavier than the last. The confidence he had earlier was gone, replaced by something closer to regret, maybe even fear. He stopped a few feet away. I was just doing my job, he said quickly, like he had been rehearsing that sentence in his head. The man nodded slightly. I know. The guard looked surprised for a second, like he wasn't expecting agreement. But your job isn't to decide who belongs and who doesn't, the man continued. Your job is to keep people safe, not make assumptions. The guard opened his mouth, then closed it again, because he didn't have an answer. The man stepped closer, not aggressively, but enough to make the moment real. When I walked up to that door, he said, you didn't see a customer, you didn't see a man, you saw a problem. The guard's eyes dropped. And that's bigger than just you, the man added. That's something you've been taught, something you've seen, something you've accepted without even realizing it. The room stayed completely still, because now it wasn't just about one action. It was about something deeper. I'm not here to humiliate you, the man said. I'm here to change what happens next. That shifted the energy again. Not softer, but more meaningful. He turned back toward the manager. First thing we're going to do is training. Real training. Not something you check off a list, not something you forget after a week, something that actually changes how people think. The manager nodded quickly.
Of course, absolutely.
Second, the man continued, I want every employee here to understand something clearly. He paused, making sure everyone was listening. This place doesn't sell cars. A few confused looks appeared. It sells experience, he went on. And if that experience comes with judgment, disrespect, or bias, then it's already broken. The words settled into the room like something permanent, because they weren't just instructions, they were a standard. The man walked over to one of the cars, running his hand lightly across the smooth surface, then looking back at the employees. Anyone can learn how to sell a car, he said, but not everyone knows how to treat people right. That's what's going to change here. One of the younger salesmen, the same one who had laughed earlier, finally spoke up, his voice quieter now. We didn't think it would go this far, he admitted. The man looked at him. That's the problem with moments like this, he said. People think they're small. They're not. They build over time. They shape how people see the world. The salesman nodded slowly, the weight of that realization clear on his face. Outside, more people had gathered, some curious, some just watching, sensing that something unusual was happening inside. Word had already started spreading, quietly but quickly. Inside, the atmosphere had completely changed, not just because of ownership, but because of awareness. The man stepped back toward the center of the showroom, his presence now fully established, not just as the owner, but as someone who had forced a shift that couldn't be ignored. I didn't come back here just for business, he said. I came back because moments like today, they decide what kind of place this is going to be. He looked around one last time, making sure every face understood, because next time someone walks through that door, he continued, I don't want them to feel what I felt. Silence followed, but this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. The manager straightened slightly. It won't happen again, he said. The man held his gaze for a moment. Make sure it doesn't, he replied, because promises were easy. Change was not. He turned slightly toward his team, who had been standing quietly, letting everything unfold. Let's get to work, he said. And just like that, the moment shifted from confrontation to action. But even as things began moving again, as conversations restarted and people slowly adjusted, one thing stayed with everyone in that room. The realization that they had witnessed something bigger than a business deal. They had seen what happens when someone refuses to accept how things are, and decides to change them instead. And that kind of moment doesn't disappear. It stays, it shapes, it remains, because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't made with anger, it's made with control, with truth, and with a quiet decision to turn a moment of disrespect into something that forces the world to look at itself differently.